Hi, so in this video we're going to continue implementing MPV integration for my search and sub script, which allows you to search for words in subtitle files and then play the results immediately in MPV player. So let me demonstrate what we have so far. So we are searching for a word wiki in this subtitle file, which also has a video file next to it in the same directory. And then we pass this -p option for play, and if I press enter, the search will run, and then MPV player will open and we can watch the search results.
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig på, alltså om man ska kolla upp en historisk händelse så kollar jag alla Wikipedia.
Att med sina elever.
So this is what we have. This is an EDL file, which is a special format in MPV. It stands for edit decision list. It basically allows you to make an edit of the video in a plain text file and then play it back as a kind of this virtual file that in reality pulls information from a bunch of different files like scattered across your system potentially, but it can play it as a single file. It's a very nice format, and you can do pretty interesting things with it, something like this. So what we did, we also added chapters to this, and you can navigate the search results, and all the chapters are named by taking the first line from each subtitle, so I can just actually go through the chapters and go to each segment of the video in that way as well. So that's what we have so far. Here's also like all the search results in the terminal. So let's clear that. So today we're going to continue on implementing the options that I planned to implement as I was kind of thinking about this stuff. Basically, we're going to implement these 4, I think, or at least we'll try, and then we'll see how things go. Maybe we'll do something else, or maybe, yeah, I'll try to implement these 4. Actually, yesterday I had another session, or like I tried doing this yesterday, but I was too tired and I ended up kind of basically discarding that session and reverting the script to its previous state. But I did do some work which I still saved in like in this other file, and I might be kind of referring to that during this video, so that I don't kind of so that I can go a little bit faster and not rewrite certain code that I already wrote yesterday. But a lot of this I'll still kind of go through live kind of as I go along, but that's gonna be just like of some help, because like that video ended up being very long, and I sort of like there was a lot of pauses and thinking and just kind of trying things out and things not working. It just like was a mess basically. So I decided to start it over. So let's go ahead and jump right in and add these options to our getopt opt strings here. So for the short version, we'll add the F to save the file containing relative paths. So actually, let me first kind of explain a little bit what all this stuff does, because there's the syntax here. So basically, this option will save EDL files to the directory that the user chooses, and save the file and call it by a certain name that user can provide as well. And this will use like relative paths in the EDL files, which means that basically you won't be able to move those EDL files, but like if you move like if all of your video files happen to be contained under that subdirectory, like relative paths would make more sense, because you can move the entire directory, and since the paths are relative, the EDLs will still work just fine. Like I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, then as we go along it will become more clear. But the absolute path, like the absolute, this other version of the option says absolute, that will create EDLs with absolute paths, actually just like the ones that we have right now. I can run this again, and I can open our temporary files that were created there. So here's our main EDL file, and it has absolute paths to this temporary cache directory, and all of the paths here are absolute paths as well. So yeah, but this option will allow the user to select relative path if that is more if that is preferred. So this relative and absolute refers to the paths within the EDL files themselves. Yes. So let me close this. Actually, it primarily refers to paths in these subtitles and video .edl files, because this, I could actually make this relative and it would still play. I could do it like this, for example, which I might actually do because this makes more sense. This number would have to be adjusted, but I'll look into that later. That's fine. Yeah. Okay, so let's not just kind of jump all over the place, which is hard to do because there's a lot of variables and just things are constantly popping out at me, and I notice oh, I could adjust that or this or that, and then it ends up being kind of a bit all over the place. But let's try to keep it on track. So those are the save files options, and yeah, I should explain this part. So basically, you can provide either the path or the name, or both, or neither. If you don't provide anything, then it will use a default, it will basically save the EDL files to the current working directory in the terminal. And the name will be, well, I haven't quite decided what it will be yet, but it will be either a default name that will be just built into the script, or maybe I'll make it so that it's generated based on the search terms that you provided here. So if you search for a word wiki, then it will be something like wiki.edl, for example. Or if you search for wiki, because you can have multiple search terms, I could go wiki and I don't know, some other word. And this would call wiki maybe underscore blah.edl, stuff like that. But there's kind of a few things to think about there. We'll get to it later. So that's the name. So and the path, if it's not provided, yeah, like I said, it's going to be current working directory. But let me explain these two, or these three possibilities here. So you can just provide the path, or both path and then the EDL file name, or just the file name. So basically the presence of the .edl extension is what will determine whether you're referring to some directory or a name of the EDL file. So this will serve to distinguish this from this, the .edl extension. In case you want to create a directory that ends in .edl, you can add a / at the end that will distinguish, say that's the directory. It does not end in .edl anymore, it just has this trailing slash. But that will remove the ambiguity in this for the script, so that it knows that it refers to a directory. And then if you enter a whole path, and then the last component is name.edl, then that will be broken down into the path where to save the EDL files, and then the name for the files. So that's what this syntax means. I could also like simplify it to this basically, like, and remove this. But I just wrote it like this because I thought it's more clear this way. Even though, yeah, it kind of looks a bit complicated, but it's not that complicated if you just, once you wrap your head around it, it just it's a nice and compact way to not have to define too many options, and like you can do it all in one option. So these other two options, they will tell the script whether to automatically create this path directory if it doesn't exist, or throw an error and say like that directory doesn't exist. That's what that will control. And yeah, these options, I just thought of them this morning. It's like to whether to overwrite existing EDL files or not, and like maybe to give a user a prompt to say, hey, like these files exist, do you want to overwrite them? Something like that. But that's something for later because I haven't quite figured out the logic of it yet, and there's quite a lot to do as it is. So let's just jump right into it, and let's define those options in the getopt in getopt. So the first one's the short versions first. So it's going to be f, then 2 colons, because it takes an optional argument. That's what these square brackets refer to. Then we have the capital F for the absolute path, also with an optional argument. Then the lowercase d for create new directory if it doesn't exist, and the uppercase d for do not create a directory if it doesn't exist. So that's those options, and I'll need to add them here as well. Let me copy some things from here. So it's going to be edl-save-files-relative, again double colon for an optional argument, edl-save-files-absolute, with a double colon. edl-save mkdir, and edl-save no mkdir, both of which do not have do not take an argument. So no colons there. Okay, so that's that. Now let me copy some stuff from the script that I worked on yesterday, so that I don't, like, just to cut down on typing. Basically, I'll copy these opt variables for these options that I just defined. So we'll have 3 more variables: opt edl-save-files-relative, opt edl-save-files-absolute, and opt edl-save-mkdir. Now, this is actually, I'm going to change this compared to what I did yesterday, because I realized that this won't quite work. Like the default values of both of these will be unset. Like this really doesn't do anything for the script, because these variables haven't been defined anywhere above this place in the script, so they are unset at this point. But I'm just putting it here so that it's clear that the default values are unset. And so these two options will work. It's like either one or the other, but not both. It's an exclusive or relationship. Yeah, so they can either both be unset, or one of them can be set, or the other can be set, but both cannot be set simultaneously. And the reason why I don't want to do this, because like I could say that, well, this will represent the unset state, is because I want to distinguish like bash can basically distinguish whether the variable has been set to an empty string but still declared, or if it's not set at all. And when it's not set at all, that will mean that the user did not request saving the files, and that means that just like create temporary files if edl if like this option edl play has been passed, so like this -p that we passed here when we played the search results. So if that is passed, then then play it, but just create temporary files. If I pass like -f and then like file.edl here, then that would mean also save it, but also play what you saved. So yeah, but like if it's not set at all, then the user didn't request the save. But like it could also have no value, which would be an empty string. Basically, it would be the same as doing this, and that would mean like that these would be kind of set to an empty string and defined. But I don't want that, like, because like if a user passes an option here without any argument, that has its own meaning. It means that save to the current working directory and generate either like use the default name for the files. So that has its own meaning that is distinct from like empty string has its own meaning. Basically, it's the same as having like no argument passed here. And yeah, so unset it, that means it's just like no, the option has not been passed at all, like no saving has been requested. It'll make more sense if it didn't from this explanation later on as we continue working on this stuff. But like the default values will be unset. So that's that. Now, again, this is the version I worked on yesterday. I'll copy this stuff from here, and yeah, I'll paste it here. So we just set these things for parsing, and as you can see, I don't just assign the value of this option to the respective variable, but I also unset the other variable. So when relative is set absolute as well, I should say unset because I didn't do that yesterday, but that's how we're gonna do it today. Unset. So and the other gets unset. So they are in this exclusive OR relationship in this case. And then edl-save mkdir simply sets it to 1 if true, and no mkdir sets it to an empty string, which will represent false because bash doesn't have booleans, and this is the way to do the same thing basically in bash. Yeah. So let me take a short break and come back to it in a few minutes. Okay, so let's continue. Now, there's one thing that we need to take care of regarding these options because of the way they interplay with each other over here. Because basically, or rather over here, after the config file is read, because like potentially a user might by accident set both of those options in the config file, even though like I don't see any reason why anyone would actually set those options in the config file, because that would end up basically saving the script every time, or like saving the results every time you run search and subs to whatever directory you define. I mean, maybe someone would want to do that. Who knows? But basically, just to make sure that no like weird behavior emerges out of this peculiarity of how these options interact with each other, I'll just add an error message that I'll copy this other error message that I have here, and I'll use that as a template. So like in case both of those options are set, the script will say like, nope, that cannot, that's not allowed. So we'll set this to 31, which will make this message red color for error, and we'll say both edl-save-relative and edl-save-files-absolute, or set in the configuration file. I'll worry about the phrasing later. The point is that we need to check if both of these were set at all, and this brings me to like one point that I wanted to share. Let me see, I forgot to do something here. There we go. So yeah, I'll pull up the bash reference manual for a second, and I'll search per parameter substitution, because we need a way to test or not substitution but expansion. There's basically a difference between when you use these constructs, when like whether you include a colon or not has like is significant, and that has to do with whether or not that variable has been declared or not, like if it's set or not, or in other words unset. And I'm just like, man, I should have looked it up ahead of time though, but let me see if I can find the thing. Yeah, let me see, parameter substitution or expansion. I think okay, yeah, this is it. Here's the table that basically explains it. We are gonna use this plus parameter substitution, which basically in this particular construct without a colon. So it says and that's different from when you do use a colon. Basically, let me just show you how to do it. I'm gonna otherwise just rant, and it's easier to explain it this way. So, in order to test whether or not the parameter has been set even to an empty string, this is what you can do. And yeah, and I know how to explain why. I'll do that in a second. Should be an or here. So we're saying if this is, no, it should be and. That's right. Yeah. So if both the relative and absolute are set, even to an empty string, throw an error and exit, basically. That's what it said. Let me first test if that works. So I'll just copy these lines and open my config file, this one, paste that, remove the unset thing, and just set them to an empty string. Here, so both edl-save-relative and absolute were set, but if I unset one of them, then the script runs. If I unset both of them, the script runs. But if both of them are set, even to an empty string, it throws that error. So now, like, how does this work? Basically, if you use this construct, if parameter, so like null refers here to the empty string situation, basically, or not basically, exactly, to that. So like, if it's set but null or set and not null, like when you pass a colon, the two are different. So when it's set but null, if you pass a colon, then it substitutes null. But if it's set and not null, it substitutes word. But when you don't pass a colon, these two are the same. And but when it is unset, it substitutes null. So let me just show you what that all means. It's kind of like, yeah, difficult to explain, but basically, so let's first unset, or let's first set a to 1. Okay, so let's do first with the colon. So, or maybe I can do them side by side like this. Yeah. So when it is set to some value that is not null, or in other words, not an empty string, then these two result in the same behavior, namely whatever you put after the plus gets substituted in this place. So that's what happens in that case. If you set it to an empty string, then what happens is only, then in the first case, nothing gets substituted when the colon is present. In the second case, though, it still substitutes the whatever you put on after the plus. And if you unset the variable, then nothing gets substituted in either case. So the difference is here. And when we do this this conditional comparison, basically if this variable is set to even to an empty string, there was always, like, this underscore will always be substituted. Like, the underscore is just a placeholder. I could have put like anything there, but then like, this will evaluate to true, basically, that there is something there. But if I put a colon there, then it would nothing would get substituted, and that gets interpreted as false by this conditional statement. So I hope this makes sense. I mean, I wish I could explain it more cohesively. There was also like some answer on Stack Overflow that I'll maybe I can try to find that that demonstrates the exact thing that I just tried to explain. I guess like bash test if variable is empty string, for example. Let's try that. No, that's not it. Or here is someone is doing kind of the same thing. They just use X to instead of the underscore. I just use the underscore. Yeah, that's basically how you do it. Here's like an explanation from someone. Basically, yeah, okay, let me bookmark this, and I'll leave a link to this in the description. Sorry if this was a little bit just random, but let's not dwell on that. It's not sometimes just like I understand it, but explaining it is a whole different thing. But I hope it did make sense. And I'll leave those links in the description so that you can refer to them. Basically, this allows us to test whether that variable was, whether these variables were set properly. Okay, so we took care of that. Now, so what's next? So let me refer back to what I did yesterday here. And actually, I'll just copy this part that I added, and I'll go through it over here. So basically, this is where we're gonna be figuring out, like parsing this part basically of the option. Either one of those, like both of those, or either one of those, I should say. Yeah. So it says like that on the condition that either relative, like edl-save-files-relative is set, or edl-save-files-absolute is set, then I create this new variable here, and I just concatenate edl-save-files-relative and edl-save-files-absolute. That's just like to drop the distinction between the two for this in this particular part of the script, because like if I concatenate them, there's like one of them will always be empty. So I basically say like whichever one it is, just put its value to this variable so that we can parse the path and the name out of that value. And we are working with like two new variables here, edl name and edl path. So I should probably just, like, for clarity, do this, even though this doesn't like really do anything, but we say that, like, okay, we need to figure out edl name and edl path, and we do that in this next segment. So now let's see how we figure that out. First, we test that if this edl-save files, which is the value of whichever one of these was set, we test if it ends in edl, .edl, and if it does, we basically we remove the part of the string that like we remove a prefix up until the first /. So for example, let's say a equals 1, 2, 3.edl. So this is our let's say that this is the value that was passed to either relative or absolute edl-save-files option. Then what we do here is like this double number sign, then star / just removes everything until the last / that it can find, and so we get 3.edl. We get edl name. If I used only one number sign, it would remove only up until the first / that it would find. That's not what we want, but that's how this thing works in Bash. Now, in order to determine the edl path, we do the opposite of that. We remove from the end of the line up until the first / that it finds. So here it says like %/*, and if we do that, %/*, that gets rid of this last part. So it searches, and then it goes like, okay, it's the first /, so we remove that part. Again, you can use 2 % signs, and then it will remove everything until the last / that it finds, but searching from the end of the string. So that gives that output. So hopefully this this is clear what this does. Let me put the path before the name though, because it kind of makes more logical sense when you look at it. So we parse out the path and the name in this way if the string ends in .edl. So let me see. Actually, yeah, I'll need to adjust it, I think, because it can also where's my note? There it is. So what we just did covers this case, but we also have this case, and in that case it's not gonna work quite the way we want it to. Like, this path actually will have to be determined in a separate statement. So yes, so this will work in whatever case. So let's say we have a 1, 2, 3.edl and then b 3.edl to represent both of our cases. So in order to get the name, in either case we can use this, because if it doesn't find any slashes in the thing, then it just won't do anything, and we'll get a correct result in both cases. But for the path, that's not gonna work, because if I do this %/*, then like in the first case it does what we want, but in the second case it doesn't find any slashes, so it returns 3.edl, but that's not the path, that's the name, and so like the variable would be assigned incorrectly. So we need to add another thing here, and I still might rearrange it even afterwards, but let me just kind of take it one step at a time. edl-save-files equals // basically if it has a // yeah, we can actually do this to test if there is a slash and a .edl, and then we can set both of them. And like do that first. So this might end up sort of like an if else if statement in the end, but let me just kind of go with this for now. So in this case we'll get both variables like I just demonstrated. In this case we get only the edl name. Edl path is like will still remain set to empty, and then if it does not end in .edl, then the path will be set to just the value of edl-save files. So that's this case. Like if you add this / at the end, it won't make any difference, but except that the string won't end in .edl anymore, and neither of these I opened the wrong file. That's yesterday's one. I should like, man, I keep moving them around. Like, how do I? Okay. Oh man, like it just ends up being such a mess. Like, what? For some reason, this particular set of options is difficult to implement, and it ends up being a bit messy when it comes to like explaining it and everything else. But yeah, okay, so here. So yeah, when you have a when the string ends in .edl/, that prevents these cases from matching. And like in this case, if it does not end in .edl, then edl path is just set to edl-save-files. I could also I could also remove that like trailing slash in case it is there. I'm gonna do that like this. So I'll actually rewrite this stuff as because I think we covered all of the possible options. I mean, I could also write a case statement instead of doing if then. I think a case statement might be good here. So case edl-save-files in ESAC, and we'll have so these will be our cases. This is the first one, second one, well, not .edl. That case we can represent with by using this extended glob pattern. It's activated by using shopt-s ext glob. So that's the third case, and finally. Well, I guess those are the three cases. And then if if the EDL path is still not set, then set it to the current working directory. But that's gonna be just like after the case statement, I think. So I can move this here. Let me just make it explicit that like EDL path ends up being nothing here. EDL name is set to this. This is kind of a complicated syntax, so yeah. At least I'll write it out like this right now, and so that I can see everything clearly, and then like if it seems excessive later, I will simplify it. But yeah, something like this, I guess. So this should be fine, and then yeah, then EDL path. If it's still empty after considering like what went on in the value of EDL save files, then we set the path to the current working directory. The name that's kind of the default path. Actually, like, why am I doing this? I can set the default path up there as well, because yeah, in this case, in this way, it can get changed here, and I can that justifies having this like empty thing here. Yeah, that's okay. Although the name here, that shouldn't be cancelled. Because like it's being set to the default. Yeah, like, or no, wait a second, what am I talking about? Like, no, it's fine. Maybe I can just do the same here for EDL name. Yeah. So like, yeah, at this stage, as you can see, I'm like, I'm not entirely sure how to implement it like off the top of my head, so I'm trying various things out, and this is just kind of how I have to do it, because it's not entirely clear, like the path is not clear, so I have to kind of do some exploration. Yes. Yeah, maybe this is an okay way to write it. Well, I do need ideal name. Okay, let me just leave stuff alone for now, like this. And let me test out what we have. So I'll do printf %sn and edl path and edl name. Let's see what those variables are, and exit here so that we don't get any more output than this. So where's our example? Here. So yeah, I forgot to get rid of that stuff in the config file that I did to test that edge case. But okay, so now we don't have anything for the path value, and we have for the name. Let me just kind of, for so that it's visually more clear, I'll say path colon like this, and name colon. Okay, so path is empty right now, and name is temp.edl. That's the default. Like, I haven't passed any of those -f options. So now let's pass one. I'll just use the long version for the time being, because it's a bit easier to read. So let's see. So let's say name.edl. So this is correct. We have the name set to name.edl, and the path is set to the current working directory. This is the current working directory. So so that worked. Like, so now let's try just like, let's say dir. So that should change the path, but okay, the name gets unset, and that's because this really shouldn't be here. So I get rid of that. Yes. I'll probably like remove all this spacing later on, but I'll just do it like this right now. So the path gets changed, but the name remains the default one. Like if I wanted the directory to be called for whatever reason dir.edl, like if I didn't add any slash here, then it would think like, oh, dir.edl is the name of the edl file, but that's not what if that's not your intention, then just you add a trailing slash, and then that removes that ambiguity, and that makes dir.edl the name of the directory, and the name of the file will be set to default. But you can also, of course, say something like this, and then you get a different file name, or you can do this, and that also makes sense. So yeah, I think it's all working out basically. So this EDL path doesn't do anything here. So just get rid of that. Maybe I can leave it like this in terms of the formatting. I don't need these anymore. So yeah, and now we have like this default name that we can later decide whether we'll pick some default value here or maybe generate that name based on the search terms like I thought about. But yeah. Yeah, I think I'll get rid of this spacing. It just doesn't really seem necessary. It's not all that convoluted to have all of that there. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Maybe I could keep it. Okay, let's keep it. It's kind of a bit of a peculiar case. Okay. So let's see, what is next? What's next? So currently our naming convention has been basically this. So these are the temporary files that the script generated and that I kept, and they're still like in the cache directory. So we have main.edl, video.edl, subtitles.edl, and then chapters.ff metadata. I'm gonna change that convention because we basically want to have like one name, and basically what we want to have is like name.edl. That will be the main file. Then we'll have name dash video.edl. That will be the video.edl. Then name subtitles dash, or not dash but .edl. That's for the subtitles.edl. And then name dash chapters .ff meta data. So this is kind of what I thought would be the optimal convention, because like if you save you know, a file that you want to keep, it doesn't make sense to have like this name, the name this way, because you might want to have like multiple of them in the same directory, and then the subtitles.edl and like video.edl coming from a different searches, well, like there will be a naming conflict there. The names will be the same, so I can't just like rename main.edl and leave everything else alone. So this is kind of the cleanest way I could think of to resolve this. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Let me see. So let me see what I did yesterday there. Where is that script? Here. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I already did some adjustments here yesterday, and also later in the script, but so essentially here's what we're working on right now. This EDL name has to go here. It's gonna be also the name of this folder that if the user chooses to have a different structure where you have a subfolder. So let me show how that works. Comment this out so the script doesn't get interrupted, and I'll run that, but I'll also pass the -u option, and I'll say subdir, so that we have a subdirectory there. And what happened? Oh, I forgot to keep the files. Yeah, so now we have the subdirectory named according, like the same as the main file, and with the .files added at the end. So we will need to adjust this here so that it's not main.edl, but whatever the edl name, whatever the value of the edl name variable is. So I'll just copy it from yesterday's script because just to save some time. But the only thing I did is just I replaced main.edl with the variable, and that's it. So now if I run it, like the main.edl will go away, and it'll be like tmp.edl because that's our current value of edl name variable. Or not. Like what happened? Oh, like sometimes there's this glitch with the watch app, not app, but command line utility. Yeah, okay. Now the directory got renamed, but we still have main.edl, and like the rest of the files are still named the old way. So I also worked on that yesterday, and let me find the part of the script where that where those files get created. And it happens here. That's where all of the files get generated. So let me go to that same line 427 here. So this is what I did yesterday. So basically I added another variable here, edl main edl, because this actually occurs like over here and also when we play that thing in the MPV player. But not just that, we'll also it will also be now changing based on what I still haven't talked about, but we'll have to also define a destination directory, because so far the only destination directory that we had was the cache directory. But now we can also, these options allow us to use a custom path to save that stuff too, kind of with an intention to keep it. So the destination directory will now, will now be two possibilities for that. Over here, I just have this cache edl-dir there, but what I did yesterday is, like before this line, I added another thing here, which again tests like if this is set or this is set, and I'll have to adjust it for the empty string case too, but edl-dir, so like if either one of them is set, then set edl-dir to edl path, but otherwise use the cache directory. Basically, if the user passed either the -f or -F, like one of these options, then we're not working with the cache anymore. We're working with, like in the default case, the current working directory or whatever directory was defined was defined here by this path value. That's where the files will go. So let me see. So I think I kind of explained what changes took place here, or rather here, sorry, this is the yesterday's file. Yeah, let me see if there was anything else. Yeah, I don't believe so. So yeah, I've pretty much explained everything. I adjusted the names so that basically over here it says video.edl, subtitles.edl, and chapters.ff metadata, but I added the edl name variable here, removing the edl extension because like our current name is like tmp.edl, but we want to have tmp-video.edl here, so I removed the edl. And same thing here, like tmp-subtitles.edl, tmp-chapters.ff metadata. So that's what that does. So yeah, this is like all the changes. I'll copy this part to our current script so we can test it and see if these changes work correctly. I wish I did it all like in one session, but yeah, it's kind of like a lot of testing things out. Let me see, let me do that again. Don't wanna like replace something that I didn't mean to. So I'll just take this if statement and copy that. And I'll select the same if statement here. And replace it. So let's change this to, let's change these two things to this, so that even if it's set to an empty string, it will be considered as a variable set. So now I believe it should rename all of our files according to the new naming convention. Yeah, and it did so. So as you can see now, we have tmp.edl and basically tmp everywhere. Every file of this set of files starts with tmp, which it kind of serves to identify it as a set. So yeah, I also have this comment here, add condition if not save. So basically the cache only needs to be cleared if like neither opt edl-save-files-relative nor opt edl-save-files-absolute is set. So yeah, like I always get confused when this logic get inverted if I need to change this, but I don't think I need to. Like I was working that out yesterday in this other part of the script. Let me take a peek and see what I concluded there, because I did test it. And where was it? Yeah, here. Yeah, okay. I need to keep or there. So it's neither opt edl-save-files-relative nor opt edl-save-files-absolute is set, clear cache. before before generating new files, basically, so that there's no garbage left over in cache, like in case here, for example, change the structure. So if I change this to flat, which is the default,
Att man som historielärare
it should remove all the extraneous files there. Actually, let me just like to make sure that that works as expected, because this kind of thing is easy to just like change and then forget, and then you only later do you realize that it's not working as you thought it would. So let me find that clear cache.edl thing, and let me just say echo clearing cache, just to see clearly that that has run, and let me pass -q so that I don't get any other output, and like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
att man som historielärare måste vara duktig.
Okay, so now the cache was cleared. We can see that the message appears, but if I pass -f, cannot open file. Oh, okay, like that messed something up, but it's still cleared cache though. Yeah, and that didn't work. Okay, that's so this potentially still needs to be changed. Maybe, yeah, I just like made a bunch of changes, but I need to test like what all of these things get set to before I can really do anything. So let's do that. Printf edl-dir. What else do we need to test? Well, let me first see about that, and I'll put an exit here so that we don't need to like look at the player right now. So man, like when you get to this stage where you just like you're doing things and things stop making sense, it just like sucks. Okay, let me take a step back, comment that out, and put that back as it was. Where does that come from? Missing operand. Why is it, what? You know what, I think I'll backtrack, because I changed something that I'm not getting what's happening here. So I think this situation was working, so
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig. Alltså.
yeah, this is working. Okay, so let's stay here for a few moments. I'll just go forward in history again just to copy this and then go back yet again. Yeah, to this place, and let me see, so edl-dir So right now the destination directory is this, and the cache got cleared. We just saw that happened. So now if I pass -f, what happens now? rm missing operand, and edl-dir is not set to anything. Well, that's weird, but let's. So like, what is that rm referring to? Is that coming from here? It's probably coming from this function. I don't get it. Okay, so like that all works fine. I guess there was nothing in cache and that's why it was complaining. But so I have the null glob shell option set, and that means that basically if when this function runs, if there's no matches for this glob, like this star, then there won't be anything there, and it'll basically say, then it'll throw an error because there was a missing, like nothing will get passed to rm as an operand, like it said, and yeah, and that would mean and that's why the error message was occurring. Let me take a small break because I'm getting a little bit tired, and I'll come back to it in a few minutes. Alright, so let's continue. Okay, so I need to like test out a few things basically. First, I want to I'll add this frames equals 0 to MPV so that it just doesn't play every time, but it would act as though it did play. It will just quit immediately after starting without opening the video. That's just for testing purposes, and I'm not gonna exit because now the player won't open, and I want to see the whole process unfold. So let me see if let me also test this edl-path variable. I also want to see what that gets set to. So right now I'm considering what's happening in this line. Let me see what happens now. Okay, so yes, edl-dir gets set to cache and edl-path is set to nothing. That makes sense. Now, if I pass -f, just something super weird happens. Like edl-path for some reason is not set to anything, but I mean, didn't we like make it so that it would get set to the current working directory? So something is not working there. So so let's go back here and see what happens. Why are we losing information? So if I do pass, like I forgot to test the case where I don't like have any value passed. Yeah, that's why it's not working, because I forgot about that case. So so edl-save-file is actually equals to an empty string, but like, so we're interested in the edl path. Here it is. Let me make it more explicit. Edl path, edl name. These are the names of the variables here. So yeah, but I did pass -f. It's because of this, like, because I forgot to take care of the case where it's set to an empty string. Now it gets set, and that's the intended behavior. But if I don't pass -f, then that's what happens. Okay. So, okay. Now let's go back to that part at the end, or not the end, but later in the script. Yeah, so I think now it should work. Let's see. So edl path, yes, and destination directory got set to the current working one, and we have like our files generated here. Yeah, like I'm not really sure if, I mean, let's try playing it, but tmp.edl, I'm not sure if that's gonna work. Well, it does work, which is good, but yeah, I didn't pass the chapters file, but that's fine. So I'll remove those though for now. Tmp, remove all of that. So okay, there was this error with that nothing got passed to the RM, and the reason for that is because yes, because this doesn't match anything, because the cache is empty right now. So what we really want to do is like clear the cache if it's empty, but RM cannot, I mean, unless there's an option. Let me see, man RM, is there anything to, yeah, I don't think so. I'll just have to test if that glob matches anything. Cache edl-dir. And the way to test if a glob pattern matches anything, so here's our empty, let me just make sure that it's updated, yes, empty cache directory. So that's .cache, search and subs edl star. So we need to see if this matches anything or not. And there's this compgen built-in bash, and I believe you have to do the -G to basically see if there are any matches for a particular glob pattern, and you pass the glob pattern as just as an I'm quoting this because otherwise it would basically treat it as a glob, and then matches to the glob will get passed to the function, but not the string, the literal string. So I need to pass the glob as the literal string, basically, to the compgen built-in, and it returns 1 because there's nothing in that folder. But let's generate some files and see what happens in that case. Yeah, so here now there's some files and it still returns 1. Why does it return? Oh, because yeah, because tilde is not it's because of the tilde. So that's why I always like have to use just home instead of tilde. Tilde only works on the command line, basically. It's just like a it's kind of, yeah, it stands for the home directory, basically. Or don't quote me on that. I probably said something that's not entirely accurate. It's not that it works on the command line. It's just like in this case I'm passing it literally, and it gets interpreted as a literal tilde. Yeah, like you can't save a tilde to a variable, for example, then use that path from a variable. Like then the tilde will get it will just look for a folder named tilde instead of interpreting that. I think, and this is just like a I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that tilde and star essentially work the same. It's like if you do ls tilde, then it will list everything in the home directory. If you do ls star, then that it's a special character that gets interpreted like that. Yeah. Okay, let me not dwell on that. Let me just go back to what I was doing. So right now this pattern matches stuff because it lists all of the matches. So this compgen function is useful, and it is a built-in in bash. We can test that it is a built-in by using the type built-in. The type is also a built-in. So that's what those things are. Yeah, and now like if I clear that cache, which I can do by just if I pass -f right now, it's gonna clear the cache successfully. And again, like create a bunch of files here, but I don't want that, so I'll remove those again. But the point is that now there's nothing in the cache directory, and now the compgen will return 1 and like not match anything. So that's what we can use here to check if this match has any matches. Basically, I'll need to quote this because again, like I need to pass it as literal characters to compgen. And basically, I'm not interested in this output that it produces when it does find matches, like we had here. So I'll redirect that to dev null, just silencing that output. And but basically, in the case of success, go ahead and remove the stuff, but otherwise we're done there. So now we should not have any problem if the cache is empty and it tries to like clear it. So let's see. There, it was empty and it tried to clear it. Yeah, and there was no errors. So that's taken care of. Now we'll again, like, let's go back to this thing that I said here, that add condition if not save. So this only needs to be done if we're actually generating new temporary files. That's why we're clearing the cache. But if we're saving a file to our custom location by using the -F or -F options, or their long versions, then we don't need to clear the cache, because like if there's anything there, maybe like we decided to keep those files for some other reason, it's just like it's not relevant to the operation. So in that case we don't need to clear the cache, and I think this should do it. So right now there's something in cache. You can see that here. Just refresh that clear to make sure that it's all correct. Sometimes like when the window, like the terminal window moves around, watch sometimes freezes for some reason. Yeah. So let me now do again -F. So that will save the files into our current. Let me instead of creating a mess here every time, let me just do mkdir test, because this should work now. I'll just pass test to the F option, and man, okay. What? It did create the files, but there was some error playing them. But okay, and the cache still got cleared, so that didn't work. Okay. So what's that all about? Let me regenerate the cache. And try again. So oh, okay, yeah, I had the exclamation mark written without a space, and it should be a separate argument in this case. Like, yeah, if I don't do that, then the condition doesn't get interpreted in the expected way. I'm not sure, maybe I should put spaces here just for yeah, that's fine, I'll leave it alone. Okay, so now it seems like it works as expected. Now, yeah, so now we have something in cache, and if I use the -F option, the cache does not get cleared, but if I don't use it, then well, if I remove the -K, then we can see that it clears. Although, yeah, I should just like, damn it, like here, like let's see exactly what happens. So let's create some cache. What did I? Alright. Again, so let's just do the normal run and create some cache files. And we can see that it attempted to there was nothing there. What was it? Oh yeah, of course it's just like the function ran, but it didn't do anything, and it didn't throw any error. Like rm didn't throw any errors. So yeah, that's fine. That's expected because we always want to clear cache before generating new files, and that's what it did. So that's okay. But now let's say like don't keep any cache files. Now the cache is empty. Yes. So it got cleared first here, and then it also got cleared later after the MPV player ran. Yeah. I'm probably making it super convoluted, like. But I just want to make sure that everything works properly, like, yeah, let's see, so we don't want this function to run, we don't want to see this message, in other words, if we're saving to a custom place, and we don't see this message anywhere. And yeah, that works okay. Okay, so now we get these errors here, which basically have to do with the paths that get put inside the edl files. Let me deal with that a bit later when we start working on whether to put relative paths or absolute paths in the EDLs. There was one other thing that I did here yesterday somewhere. Yes, it's this thing. What this does is basically, yeah, I just modified this line, so let me go to that line in my current script. Yeah, so this is the original, and this is what I just pasted as the modified one. Basically, the original one wasn't checking if these things, again, making sure that the empty string case is also taken into account by changing that. But yeah, so basically this creates the cache directory, the EDL cache, if it doesn't exist, and we're planning on using cache basically. And we only use cache if we use the play functionality, but without the save options, without either of these two options that we're implementing right now. So it's just -p, but without -f or -F. So this doesn't account for whether or not we're using these save options. So I added these conditions to say that, like, if opt edl play is set, so that if -p is passed, and neither opt edl-save-files-relative nor opt edl-save-files-absolute is set, and the cache directory doesn't exist, then create that directory. But like this would create the cache directory even if it wouldn't be used, because like you would be saving the files somewhere else. So that's not what we need. So that's that modification. And I believe that's all with like this yesterday's script. Yeah, just scroll through and see if I forgot anything, but I don't believe that I did. Yeah, let me just close this because it's there's like a lot of things going on here, and the fewer distractions there are, the better. So, okay, good. So now, despite the fact that we had some error that I still can't quite interpret what that was due to, let's kind of worry about that a little bit later, because I think it has to do with the paths that get set inside the edl files. And yeah, I need to probably get rid of this, but maybe I can just comment it out for now. Well, maybe I can take a peek again at that thing. What does it say? Like, let me mute all of that output. Cannot open file. Yeah, that's because of the, so let me close that so we have more space. So we have all these files here right now. Let me open that in them. Let's see what we have there. So now it creates a relative path here, and that doesn't work because, like, test TMP video EDL. And in the EDL we have just test slash TMP video.edl. Yeah, this is difficult. I ran into this yesterday as well. It's just like there's so many things going on at this point that I'm kind of losing track of it all. Okay, maybe I'll take another little break so that I have more energy and continue in a short while. So I think I just realized why that error occurs, and that's because basically we can have, like, so let me see, like this path here does not need to be, okay, it's hard to explain, but let me just kind of generate just our normal files in the cache directory. So that's there it is, and so we have these files here. This path does not actually need to be this full path. It only needs to refer relatively to these TMP subtitles and TMP video. So if I open that, that's what we have in that directory. So these files, in this case, they are in the same directory. If we ran like a different structure with a subfolder, they would just be in a subfolder, but still in the same. That subfolder would still be in the same folder as the main EDL file. So we don't need this this full path here, and that's actually why that error occurs. It'll probably make sense like in a second once I change this. So I'll just copy these two variables here. Well, create a copy for each one. I'll just call them relative. I'll add underscore relative to the name of each one, and just remove this -dir. And I think that should solve our problem. Only I need to adjust it here as well. Relative. Let's see what happens now. So yeah, now it refers to these files by means of a relative path. Let's try the -u subdir option, and oh yeah, okay, like that's because now it's the only file in this root directory. But yeah, these paths look correct to me, so let me try and enable the playback again, and if they play correctly, then everything should be fine, and that improves the quality actually of our generated set of EDL files, even if it's cached, like because those absolute paths in the main EDL file really don't do anything. So let's see, let's try the flat structure. Works, and let's try the subdir structure. Also works. Let's just try subdir hidden. And let's see what that did. So now there's a hidden directory. Everything was good, and maybe also like subdir no chapters. Or it's not no chapters, but except chapters. So that looked okay. Yeah, the chapters file is in the same folder, and yeah, so everything looks fine. So that fixes that error. Thank God. Like, okay, I'll delete this comment because that's something I might forget in the future. I'll just recreate it if I need it again, because it seems like we took care of this part of the code. There's one thing though, like maybe, so I now have EDL main, EDL, and EDL video, EDL video, EDL relative. Maybe I should call it this absolute or something. But let me leave it alone for now. Actually, maybe I don't even need this like entire thing, because the -dir is not. Yeah, I can just actually get rid of these variables altogether and just put this over here, because that's the only place where it occurs. Like these redundant variables really clutter the code. So I can delete them, And now it's much more compact, and it should work just the same, or maybe not. 444. What did I mess up there? Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Let me do that again. So copy this value. I just removed this part accidentally. So now that should be all good.
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig på att man som historielärare.
Yeah. Okay, so now this looks real nice, I think. Yeah. Okay, so now let's move on to the part where we basically distinguish the relative from the absolute paths, and actually basically we have essentially three cases. We have a case where where relative paths will be put, and let me just make it clear where exactly those paths go. Let me create the flat structure so that it's easier to deal with. So so it doesn't have anything to do with the paths that go in this main EDL. These are just gonna be these have been taken care of. We took care of those. It only concerns this path, basically, path to the actual subtitle file and the video file. And so this is what this relative and absolute refers to. So in the cache we will have the absolute paths, because that makes more sense for that kind of general location. But we also have edl-save-files-absolute, so we don't need to change anything for that case. And we have the case where we use the option edl-save-files-relative. And in that case, we need to change this path to a correctly determined relative path. And what is it relative to? It's relative to this value, to the location where the EDL file is saved. So that's what we are gonna be doing. Now, like in the very beginning of this entire process of implementing these features, I created this line which basically says that if the name of the file starts with a /, which in other words, if the path is absolute, because every absolute path starts with the root directory, which is a / at the beginning of the entire string, that is the path. So if it is absolute, then just use that value for our video file and subtitle file variables. And if not, append the current working directory to it, not effectively, but converting that path to an absolute path. So like right now, in all cases, we only have absolute paths basically available to us. We don't have any case where, like, any code in the script that would generate a relative path. Now, when I was coming up with this line, I mentioned that there's this realpath utility that can actually convert, create any kind of path that you want for you, basically, relative or absolute. It can resolve symbolic links, and a very useful command to know about. And it also has this nice relative to option. This is what we're gonna be using to generate those relative paths. And since like basically we could use the same utility to generate the absolute paths as well, because like I sort of like use the pure bash solution here, but it's not really doesn't really make sense to generate a relative path by using pure bash. I don't even know how I would approach that. It would be just a project of its own, and there's already a command for this. So I might just, I think, get rid of this, or maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it for just that case and only use real path to generate the relative path. Well, I'll see in a second, but basically, yeah. No, I'll just use real path for everything, and I'll explain why in a second. So basically, let me see. Clear. So let's see. If I just type real path and then pass it like our video file to it, that will give us the absolute path. We can also, and like I don't have to worry about anything, like it just converts everything automatically. I don't have to worry, like if I pass it an absolute path, for example, if I pass it this thing, it will also just return the same thing. It gives the absolute path back. So I don't have to worry if the path starts with like a / or not. Like this is kind of becomes redundant. So I can have just two clauses, like one for a relative path situation, and like in all other cases, use real path to just take care and make sure that the path that we are getting from the command line, like from here, is absolute, because it can be either, and usually it's not absolute. Usually it's a relative path like this, or rather, I mean, if I ran search and subs, it would be like this, but it's the same thing. So, and like, so the relative path option. So like this is one of our cases where we have where we are generating an absolute path, and then the other one we can use this relative to option, and I'm not sure if you have to use the equal sign there, but maybe like let's say relative to the current directory. And okay, this is interesting because now it resolved the symbolic link that I have here. Let me show you what I mean. So the reason I have a symbolic link there is not really hugely relevant for what we're doing here, but it's just that I have this video downloaded in several resolutions, and I just put them in this subfolder versions, and I linked the one that I like with the highest resolution here, so that I just have it available as under that file name. But in case I need a lower resolution version, I still have it. I didn't want to delete them. So there's also like, I don't want to resolve symbolic links in this case because I want search and subs to just like work with the symbolic link, because if a user created a symbolic link there to a video, like maybe they have something like this, then I'll assume that that's what they want to appear in the EDL file. So resolving that link doesn't really make a huge amount of sense, because maybe they will move that file, then relink it, but then if I resolve this symbolic link, then the path is not gonna be valid anymore. So let me see what option do I need to use there to suppress the resolving of symbolic links. So resolve some links as encountered default. I guess it's this. I'm not sure why it's called strip. Yeah, okay, now it gives us the path to the symbolic link, treating it as though it was a file, as opposed to that. So, okay, now this is thankfully really straightforward, I think. Basically, what we're gonna have here is an if statement that checks for basically if this variable is set so, and else, like, you know, we don't need to, like, the other two possible cases is if opt edl-save-files-absolute is set, or if neither of those is set, in which case, like, use temporary files, but both of those situations require absolute paths. So I'll just do this kind of structure. So if this option is set, then we'll use the relative paths, otherwise just use absolute paths. I think this will work for our case. So video file equals subtitle file equals, yeah, it's like, I don't think it's necessary in this case to just like worry about a pure bash solution, because it doesn't really like this way the code will be kind of uniform in that I'll be using real path to determine the values in all cases, and yeah, that's way more straightforward. And like whatever like additional calls to you know, like an external utility that you know, the real path is like an external binary, so like this would be just run by bash itself, so it's like, oh, like there's a small like lag because it's calling a different program. But no, I'm not gonna do that, or I'm not gonna worry about that. It's just doesn't make any sense in this case. Like it did make sense when there was just this, but like not anymore. So yeah, we'll basically set we set them to the same value, but then we deal with the video file, we basically adjust it later. So yeah, I'll just, so that I don't have to call real path twice here, I'll just set subtitle file equals to the video file, and I can put them on the same line even, I think. But let me check that though, but I'm pretty sure that I can. So I'll just copy this as a template for this part, and as we determined, I need to pass some options here. Strip to keep symbolic links intact, and then relative to equals, and it's gonna be edl path. That's what it's relative to. When we use this option, edl path gets determined here. So okay, let me see if it works as expected. So Okay, so now we're getting absolute paths like we wanted to the oh yeah, like both of them are set to the same value, but that's gonna change after this separation has been done, so I can test that too. There, the first one is webm and the second one is sv.srt. So, okay. Now let's try the relative path. And we get the relative paths, so just like to test, let's have a relative path that is like longer. Let me go down even one more directory and and yep, I think, or yes, okay, so here's the video and here's the subtitle. Okay, that's good. So I think now it should work. So let's test it. And how are we gonna test it? We are going to just simply, we have this test directory here that has some stuff in it which we'll delete. And we will try to generate EDLs and put them in there. Oh, I'm using this thing with the wrong path. I moved back to the directory where I was. Okay, so something is not working the way I thought it would. Well, let's first try like the cases with the absolute paths. Maybe let's see if they work.
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig på, alltså,
Okay, so the absolute path so this got created and it seems to be just working totally fine.
att man som historielärare.
Yeah. And let's try the temporary version.
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig på, alltså.
Also worked. So again we have like this thing with relative paths. What was the error again? Well, generated some mess. Not sure what that is all about, but let's try again. Let's see what it came up with. P-test. For some reason it was like one directory there. Okay, or but it also it tries to open this but like without any extension for some reason. I'm not really sure why that is the case. looks like the escaping is not correct somehow. How could that happen? If it just generates everything with Lua. Well, okay, I mean, let's try and see what gets passed to this function. Arg1. I'll probably get some irrelevant errors, but what? Oh. Yeah, wait a second, this is not gonna print anything. Okay, so I need to do some stuff here. Generate EDL line, copy this. Come on. Generate EDL line and I'll exit after that. Let's see what it generates. Okay, this is not right. Why am I seeing that? Video file. What about the subtitle file? Okay, subtitle file. So it has something to do with this whole thing. Okay, so let me get rid of those things that I added just now, so I don't leave anything behind accidentally. So basically when we use the relative, yeah, okay, so like, man, that long line really gets in the way, just, but that's okay. So we're almost there. There's just like this one issue, okay? So like, it's worth pursuing. Let's see what happens at each step. So at first we get to identical variables. Then the SRT extension gets removed. The whole thing works with absolute paths. Why is it like not working with the relative ones? That's not. That's what I'm not really getting. Because with absolute paths, here it was able to find the web-m. Like, is the path that real path comes up with not correct somehow? Yeah, okay, I think I know. Yeah, okay. I think we'll need to, yeah, because this path is relative to the wherever the files are being saved, but that doesn't have to be the same directory where the script is running, the current working directory in the terminal. So that's why this doesn't produce the result that we're after. Okay, that is fine. We can fix that. And how can we fix that? By okay, I think maybe this part will stay after all, and we can just convert the path to relative. Like over here. And it's fine, we can run real path twice, no biggie. Video file, subtitle file. So yeah, we're converting these actual variables just to relative path that is needed for the edl files that are going to be generated. Can put them on separate lines. So yeah, I think this should be fine. Let's see what we get. Echo video file subtitle file. Okay, so this now has an extension and it should generate everything correctly. So let's give it a go.
Att man som historielärare måste vara duktig på, alltså om man ska kolla upp en historisk händelse.
Nice. So let's check out what it generated. Open it in Vim. And here we have relative paths. And basically, yeah, it's all formatted correctly in good working condition. Okay, yay. Oh man, this was difficult. But that's nice. We are out of the woods, so to speak. We're through the difficult part. So is there anything else? So this video is 2 hours 20 minutes long at this point. Let me see. I guess, yeah, I probably should have explained this earlier, but let me do it right now since yeah, why not? Basically, when you have this in getopt, right, when you define these options, you might have noticed that like I've been putting this test value directly after the -f, so you might be wondering, why wouldn't I put like a space there, because it kind of looks nicer. Well, the problem is that getopt, when you have options that take optional arguments, like these relative and absolute, so those are the options that we put 2 colons for over here. and over here, like they will only work like this. Let me kind of explain this. So basically, getopts, what does it accept? So options that take arguments can come in two varieties. Like the one that is defined by a single colon, it takes a required argument, and the other version, it takes an optional argument. That's the one with two colons. So when an argument is required, so that's that. Keep that in mind. Let me now explain how, like, you could. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to pass options on the command line in a way that getopt can understand. Now, if an option takes a required argument, then the long option will be go like this, like dash dash option equals value, or it can be dash dash option space value, right? So that's the long version. The short version would be dash O, for example, value, let's just say V, and or you can write it without a space too. So these are all this is all valid syntax. But that's for required arguments. For optional arguments, the syntax with the spaces, like this one and this one, they don't work. You have to have it either written together with the short version without any space in between, or you have to use an equal sign with the long version. And I kind of can guess why they made it this way. It's because like if an option can either take an argument or not take it, it's like there's no way to tell if this next argument is going to be like another option, or it's an argument to the option that could take an argument or could not take it. So let's say like maybe the value that you want to pass to dash O is actually starts with another dash. So like whatever, dash V, maybe for some reason that's the actual value that you want to pass to the dash O option. And so like if these are two separate arguments with a space in between, then there's no way to forget up to determine what your intention was. So there has to be a way to differentiate, and the way to differentiate is to write it to only use this this syntax without a space. Now, what I would have preferred they did is if they allowed equal signs with short options, so that like you didn't have to have this strange thing where you have something like we were doing here, like this, because this is just like very hard to read. But if it was like this, it would be much nicer. And I saw like other programs, command line programs, do this, like they will allow the equal sign for short options. Because like with the long version, like this is no big deal, like yeah, just you have to use the equal sign. But like this is just kind of the kind of syntax that I'm kind of reluctant to use at all. But I mean, that's the only way that getopt can do it. I wish they allowed the equal sign for the short options. So, but they don't. So like that's how it works. I still like getopt because it just allows you to parse options very efficiently, and it's a standard utility. So you know you don't need to like worry about that aspect. But yeah, I mean there is this sort of like peculiarity about it. But yeah, like I said, I wish they allowed equal signs for short options as well. I think it would make just things much more readable if you want to have options with optional that take optional arguments. But yeah, okay, I think I'm gonna end this video here, and I'm gonna continue with implementing other features in the next one. So basically, yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.